to the Dan Hafner Show. This is a inaugural pilot episode of this show slash podcast. Off to a great start already, I can tell. So my name is Dan Hafner. I wanted to start this show because I have done a lot of different things. I've done some podcasting. I've done some software development. I've done a lot of different things in the podcasting world and the software world. And I've always kind of tried to mix and match kind of what I've been doing. And I've never actually dove into one particular topic. And was struggling with like, what should I come up with for my new show? How should I make all this work? And I just decided, like a lot of people do, just name it after myself. That way I have a lot of creative freedom. I have a lot of different things I can do with this. For example, with this is going to be aired on a podcast, but also live here on YouTube and on Facebook. So it's just kind of a new venture I'm putting out there to see how all this goes, and kind of inspired by some other people's shows and how they process it, how they do it all. So that's just kind of a brief little interview of why this is even existing. So again, this is just kind of a pilot episode. We'll see how all this goes. We'll see if I can even come up with intriguing and entertaining content that anyone wants to listen to or engage in. So one thing I wanted to kick off the show with this week, and I think it's kind of a hot topic for everyone out there these days, is the topic of AI, right? Should AI be paused, right? There's been a lot of interesting things going on ever since really the end of last year, 2022, into now 2023. The time we're recording this, it's about mid-April of 2023. And there are a lot of interesting things happening. I think there was a report that came out a while ago, or even a petition rather, where very, very prominent people like Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, really, really big names have signed on to this kind of, whatever you want to call it, not a treaty, but like a petition, right, to put a 6-month pause on new AI development so we can kind of pause what we're doing, think about the ramifications of this kind of stuff, and kind of where this is all going in the future. And when I saw that was actually very, very interesting and intriguing to me. And it brings up a lot of different viewpoints. But then there was just another one that came out today, where I believe the CEO of Google has come out and also said the same thing on a 60 Minutes interview, right? That there should actually be some kind of a pause, or there should be more people that are not developers that go into the ramifications of AI. Like, what are we actually doing here? How does this all work? What are the long-term effects of something that we're building, right? And I'll be honest, that's very, very interesting to me as a software developer, as someone who I never started in that world with the goal to want to go into that, to really I kind of started out as a hobby, right? And then I turned into a business itself and a career. But as it's become more like that, I've obviously studied and I've learned and I've grown inside of my career like everyone else does. And I've really learned a lot more about that. So when I hear these types of things, it really, really intrigues me, because as a software developer, like, your goal is to make something work in a way that it's designed to work, right? You're trying to solve a problem using software. You're trying to solve a need, fill a need, do whatever you're trying to do using the software. Sometimes, I shouldn't say often, but sometimes you're just trying to accomplish the goal of the software just for the sake of accomplishing it, just to either prove to yourself that you can do it or actually accomplish the need that a client wants or a user wants or something like that. And a lot of times we don't even think through the possible ramifications of how this could be leveraged, how this could be used nefariously, right? That's kind of where some cybersecurity things come into play and those types of things. A lot of times it really comes down to a question of data. It comes down to, like, is this data going to work properly with this? Is the query going to show up correctly and everything's going to render fine? Like, that's kind of one of the big concerns, at the foundational level. But then there's also a security concern. There's also a usability concern. So this is just a very, very interesting topic because it's. I remember when a lot of people came out, they said like, "Oh, this AI is it's going to replace all these different types of jobs," and they really came down to, for lack of a better term, like more blue collar type of jobs, right? Which I don't think is true. It's proving not to be true, right? Um, there's examples of graphic designers, even people like myself, software developers, people who build things online for a living. A lot of these things can and are already being replaced with AI. It's a complete reversal of what we thought was actually going to be the case, right? Which is actually, side note, opening up a huge, completely separate side market for the types of prompts, for the mastering of AI, the knowing of AI, which is kind of how all of these things go, which is fascinating in and of itself. But to get to this core issue of like, should this stuff be paused? What are the ramifications of this type of technology? And a lot of people want to talk about like, oh, robots are going to take over the world. I don't even think like that's a way further down the line conversation. Maybe it's not. I don't know everything there is to know about AI. But as far as just like the job replacement cycle as all of this goes, um, I think it's that's a very now topic. That's a very interesting thing to think about, especially for those of us in this world of people who make their living doing things that now AI can do. People that you just take any look through the Fiverr website, right? Fiverr is a website where you can pay people $5 if you haven't heard of it. You can get little gig work done, little logo designs, app icon designs, presentations, a bunch of different things, a lot of different things. Well, almost all of that stuff can be done with AI now. Like it's absolutely nuts, right? So it's almost like an entire market replacement thing that's happening here, and that has serious financial consequences, right? Um, that's a lot of people's livelihoods that can kind of be upended. That's a lot of people's um, skill sets, a lot of different things that can be affected. And is it even? I mean, one question is, can AI even produce results that are better than a human being? Some cases, yes. Some cases, no. Right? But should that happen? Right? Like, should that happen? Is that's a very legitimate question to ask at this point in time, right? I really don't know where I come down on this side of this. Um, as someone who's in this field, and software development, there's new AI technologies that are coming out there that like can actually build you an app using AI. Like it's absolutely nuts. That's a complete replacement for everything that I do in my entire business, right? But what I've chosen to do is to embrace that and to learn that and to be on the front edge of that, the leading edge of that, to now position myself as, hey, we can use AI to do this stuff for you, right? It's almost like becoming the wielder of the sword, so to speak, right? So there is a way, and there's a way that you can position yourself in terms of doing those things, right? But is that sustainable, right? Is that something that everyone can do or should be able to do or even must do? Like that's tough. That's tough to think about and to really come down in terms of like a moral quandary. It really is a very, very interesting dynamic to think about. Um, I'm all for saving time and money when it comes to running a business, fulfilling any client needs that we have. I use AI for a lot of things now. When we build funnels, when we build landing pages, websites, excuse me, when we need images, we use a lot of AI to shortcut that process, right? Um, does that take away business from other people that might be able to do that? Yes, right? I use Fiverr a lot less now because I have a tool that allows me to do these things for something I would have had to pay for in the past. And at least right now, ChatGPT, other types of tools. They do have a free version. There is a paid version as well. But for now, like, you can still use it for free, right? So until they make it like completely paid, right? It is what it is. And that's logical from my point of view, to just use this thing that can get me better results, and save me time, which allows me to then move faster inside of my business, move faster inside of my fulfillment, all those types of things. That's a positive for me, my business, my people, my clients, right? But for the person who comes up with headlines and builds funnels and does images and does all those things, that's a negative, because that's business they're losing out on. That's a lack of work that they're getting, because I'm one less person in the market for that. Now, there is times where I do need that still, right? But it's a lot less, just because of the sheer fact that I can do it without needing that. So that's a serious consideration, right? Is this going to be something that's really going to replace all these types of jobs out there? Like, just go on ChatGPT, go on Google, go anywhere, and just search for jobs that can be replaced by AI. And you'll have like lists of like 30, 60, 90, like all these different jobs that will and can be replaced by AI. And that's a terrifying thought. That's a terrifying thought. And this is just one part of the debate, right? There's even another piece of this that's very interesting when it comes to a lot of these like deep fake videos that are coming out, where even celebrities, their voices can be cloned, their faces can be cloned, and you can make an entire video of Morgan Freeman, The Rock, like whoever, and it looks and sounds exactly like them, but they had nothing to do with it, right? That leaves people that could very well go viral and make it seem that they actually said those things, right? That they actually did those things when they in fact did not, as the human being. Like, just as a very broad example here. That's a very serious consideration. There was a real world example of this not long ago, where I believe she was either a YouTuber or TikToker. I think a TikTok star. And somebody took her face and put it on a bunch of porn sites. And it looked like she was engaging in porn when in fact she had absolutely nothing to do with it, right? It was embarrassing for her. It was degrading. It was actually really, 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 really terrible and awful that somebody would do that to her. And now she's suing. She's doing all these types of things. It's just like the worst of all humanity, of just all the different pieces involved in that, right? You want to come up and say hi to everybody? No? We'll see if my assistant Lily wants to come up here. But that's just it's incredible that those types of things are there. That those are even, I would dare to say, just as important, if not more important, considerations with AI and these types of things. Because yeah, you can take a job away from someone. Someone can always learn to get another job or pick up a new skill set or start another business or whatever. But when you're talking about ruining people's lives because of fake videos, fake voiceovers, fake things that they literally had nothing to do with, that's serious. Like that can ruin people's lives, right? I've had lots of jobs in my career. I've quit jobs. I've been fired from jobs. Like, I've bounced back every single time. Like, okay, what am I going to do now, right? But when something terrible happens to people, it can literally ruin your life. That is a really, really serious consideration that it deserves more attention. I'm not saying that the technology shouldn't exist. I'm just saying maybe we as a society really need to take a step back here and think through what are some of the nefarious ways that people can use these things, right? What are the possible things that can go wrong with this stuff? And again, as a software developer, I know that like I'm always building things for their logical one path outcome of like, hey, this is going to be so great. And then you get into something and you're like, wow, I never thought somebody would use it like that. Or we as human beings are terrible in nature, and we will twist shit to make it perverted, to make it backwards, to make it stupid. Like, you've seen it throughout history. Just read anything, Google anything, YouTube anything. Like, that's the way human beings are. And I have a terrible feeling that this is going to be something similar. There's just going to be people asleep at the wheel, for lack of a better term, that are just, we just don't have a handle on what is really happening on this, and kind of under the surface. What are the externalities of these things? Because it's serious stuff. Like, it's really serious stuff to think about, to consider, to see what's going on. All of it. It's very interesting. So I guess I've kind of worked through this in real time on this show with you guys, because I really do. I feel like, even though I benefit from AI. I've been using ChatGPT and getting better and better with using that over time, and I'm learning about some of the different ones. And all these different sites now have their own little versions of AI, which I love, and they're great, and they're beautiful, and in how they work. As a software developer, I love them. Like, I'm in love with this stuff. It's so cool. There's so many cool things. Saves me tons of time, saves me tons of money. But on the other hand, I really do feel like there does need to be some things thought through here. Now, I'm big on laissez-faire type of economics, type of government, that type of stuff. I really feel like that when governments start to get involved, things just tend to go south in a lot of ways, not all the time. But I don't want to like make this a political show or about my political opinions, but it happens a lot, right? You see the government get involved in something, and it just doesn't work as well as sometimes when private companies do that. Look at NASA and SpaceX, right? SpaceX, NASA, like that. You know what I mean? It's just one example out there. There's probably a lot more I could name if I did a little bit more thinking about it, but that's why I really think that there needs to be more of a government and private sector, like, joint project here, like a joint thinking through things, to get a bunch of different perspectives, right? I think that I don't know if a 6-month pause on anything would do any good, or if that's even possible, or like how any of that would particularly work. But what I do know is that this stuff is changing and evolving way more rapidly than like any of us, that even I can even imagine, like anyone can imagine. And it's going to get crazily out of hand very soon if something doesn't change, if we're at least trying to figure it out as we go. I'm not saying we need to stop the plane on the runway, but somebody's got to look at the flight manual at some point here, like be like, okay, what the hell is going on, and like, what's really going on here? I think that's where I land on it. The last thing I want to see is a ton of regulation, a ton of screwing up and slowing down of this kind of stuff. I don't want to see that. But what I do want to see is less nefarious things able to happen, right? I think that I think there's room for those kind of things. You want to say hi to everyone? Everyone, this is Lily. She's my assistant. You might see her in a lot of these videos. She is a lap dog, as you can tell. She loves to be on our lap. So she'll be making guest appearances from here and there. Aren't you, Lily? Say hi to everybody. All right, everyone. So that's going to be a wrap for the very first inaugural episode of the Dan Hafner Show. I got to get used to saying that. I used to have an old podcast called Run Your Day, changed it to Mobile Domination Podcast. So now it's just the Dan Hafner Show. That's all it is. So I'm going to try to keep it light, try to keep it thought-provoking, interesting, as intriguing as I possibly can. Probably going to do once a week to start, maybe do a little bit more often if some things take off and we can do well. It's funny because I'm naturally an introvert, and I feel like that's kind of why I avoided doing this for so long. But there is part of me that is that thoughtful extrovert that just kind of, I have the urge every once in a while to just put these thoughts out there and publish these things. And And it turns out sometimes I have halfway decent things to say. So who knows? Maybe I don't. I don't know. If you like this show, subscribe on YouTube, like it and share it on Facebook, and subscribe on wherever you listen to this as a podcast. And definitely leave us a review. That would be really, really helpful and appreciated. So I'm going to wrap this show up. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining the Dan Hafner Show, and we'll talk later. See ya.